Today on Locked On Red Wings, when will we see Ville Husso on the winged wheel again? And previewing Game 2 against the New York Rangers.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am the color commentator for Oakland University D1 Hockey. Scotty, how is your, I guess it's Thursday by the time people are listening to this, but it's actually Wednesday for us as we record. How's your Wednesday going?
It's good, man. It's good. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to this game. I know that we're going to preview it at the very end, but there's the reception to the season so far has been interesting just because the record isn't great. We're 3 games in and they've dropped 2 of them, but in 2 of the 3 games, I thought they've actually played pretty good hockey and we're getting a little bit of a break. At least we're hoping in net as well. So I'm actually pretty excited for this game. I think this is at home, a nice kind of bounce back opportunity against a really good hockey team. And like I said, we'll preview that at the very end, but a lot has happened off the ice surrounding the Red Wings over the last 48 hours as well. So
we have the resolution of the reassignment for Watson and Holl, as Justin Holl was recalled, and it was pretty much what we expected. We'll talk about that. We also want to talk about Ville Husso situation and just the goaltending situation in general moving forward now that Husso is in the minors, as well as talk about some of the line shuffling we saw at practice on Wednesday. But before we can get to any of that, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And I mean, just to start it off, right, we'll finish up the conversation we started yesterday's episode with the Justin Holl situation. It appears it was a paper move, at least as far as Justin Holl is concerned, because he was recalled again today. And at first I was like, why did they call him up today when they could have recalled him tomorrow and got the extra day of cap accrual, but they practiced today? And so for him to practice with the team, they had to recall him today, and so he could be part of the line rushes and everything going on at practice. So it ended up being exactly what you and I had thought. It was because they wanted an extra day where they didn't have to send him on waivers. They wanted an extra day where they were saving money. It was just cap maneuvering, which we saw with Simon Edvinsson at the end of last season.
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about that at length yesterday. That is a huge straw. What did you just drink?
So Allison, my wife, was sweet enough to get me a glass of water before we hit record. It was very sweet of her. But she decided to get me this comically large pink rubber straw to go with it.
What the heck that's bigger than your arm. Look at that. That's ridiculous. You brought that on. Also, that's what kind of water is that?
It's Mio water. There's Mio in it.
I was gonna say that's not straight water. Yeah, that was wild to just pull that off camera and just start. That was okay. Anyway, that was the funniest thing ever.
It's a comedy bit. I got a prop.
Yeah, dude, what? It's like a clown at a circus, just pulling ridiculous stuff off. Anyway, I think it's what we talked about yesterday, obviously, but I don't know. I'm my biggest thing is I wonder if we're just gonna see this every off day, every day out of practice for the next 20 days, 30 days, whatever it is. We're just gonna see this every single day. There's not a practice. He's just gonna get sent down, and then he's gonna get recalled right before the practice, before a game, and that's just gonna be how the first couple of months of the season works for him.
And we will stop reporting on it. It may be an anecdote and be like, Hull was assigned, Hull was recalled. It's not news. At the first couple times it happens, you report on it just to explain why this is happening. But now I think most of our listeners are pretty abreast with the situation that this is simply just a save on the cap for one day, because that one day accrues and it builds, and it also pushes back when they have to put him back on waivers again. Now with Austin Watson, I think that situation is still a little fluid because Christian Fischer Because we know for sure, right? And Justin Holl was recalled because we know for sure Petry's still not available for tomorrow. Austin Watson was not recalled because Christian Fischer may be available tomorrow. He is questionable, as it was put by Ansar Khan. I know Helene St. James, I believe, reported that he might be available, but they don't know. So same thing, just worded slightly differently. And even if Fischer isn't available, is there really a need to recall Watson when he played 5 minutes total, less than 5 minutes total in all of the game yesterday? So I just don't see
minutes in the penalty box.
Right. Like, what is necessarily the point of recalling a guy and having him be on your bench to not play any minutes? You're basically running 11-7 at that point without the extra D-man. Now that you have 7 D-man, because Gustafson's going to be back in the lineup, which we'll talk about, it might be better served to not call Watson back up and have Johansson be your 7th D-man so you can run 11-7. Because I just don't see the point in having a D-man or a forward in your lineup that's only going to play 5 minutes max. Like, at a certain point, like, you're shuffling those lines anyways.
Yeah, that could be a situation where, I mean, we'll talk about the lines in practice, but like where Fischer plays the 5 minutes of ice time Watson was going to get anyway and just double dips, or somebody from the second line, if they don't want to have third and fourth line be where the overlap is, or where the placeholder, where the double dipping is. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But it would not shock me either way, I guess, is kind of like it's whatever happens with it is fine. It wouldn't shock me if they called up Watson for one more game again. But also if they ran 11-7, it's, we're talking about 5 minutes, 6 minutes of ice time. So
it does not impact me emotionally one way or the other if he's in Grand Rapids or with Detroit. His role is very pointed, very niche on this Red Wings team. So with that being said, Scotty, I mean, we can move on now to the goaltending conversation, kind of a similar vein. We had the conversation with the defense yesterday when Petry comes back and Gustafsson's put back in the lineup. What are you going to do with these D pairs, considering Johansson and Holl have played well enough to earn themselves extra looks? And we kind of got half of that explanation with the practice lines today. But we want to talk about Husso, and we'll talk about those practice lines again when we preview the New York Rangers game. Ville Husso got waived down to the Grand Rapids Griffins, and now that players are getting healthy, and once they are fully healthy, do they recall Husso? Because remember, they waived Husso to create cap space to recall a couple guys. Do they keep Husso down in the minors? Or do they bring him back up now that there's roster space again?
Yeah, well, that's the $1 million question. I do think that this one is at least a little bit more of a conversation than the other ones. Like, we were pretty out in front of the other moves that we saw in terms of being all over and being like, okay, like this is pretty clearly a paper move, or this is, legitimate. Like, this is one where I think there actually is at least a conversation. You have 2 other goalies on the roster that have looked better, albeit all of the 3 goalies have only played 1 game. So I think this early in the season, I would lean toward they would call him back up. I think that they would give him another opportunity. I think, look, if Talbot goes out there on Thursday night and throws up another shutout and is just like incredible, then he should just be the de facto starter going forward. But all of them have played 1 game. Like, it takes one stinker from Talbot or Lyon for everybody in the fan base to then just be like, oh, well, let's give Husso another try, right? Like, I don't think they want to yo-yo a player. I think that when they send him down, it's going to be with intent, and I don't think, could be off base, not certain that you're going to find that dramatic of an opinion after 1 appearance so far this season.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with you, which is a rare moment for this podcast, and I'll explain why in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Just punched my mic. got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check on the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, you said that you're leaning towards them recalling Ville Husso once they have the roster space available. You know, Petry and Petry and Fischer are healthy, so they'll presumably at least send Austin Watson, who's already down, but assuming they call him back up, they'll keep him down permanently at that point. I think actually they may, and especially if Justin Holl continues to perform and earn himself more playing time in the NHL, I think they might keep him down in the minors. And my reason being is kind of almost similar to what you had said, just in reverse. Like, we saw a solid performance from Talbot in his first game, right? Incredible 42 save performance. Lyon didn't look great, but I don't think he was the reason why they lost either. They're a team that very much plays their hot hand whenever it comes to goaltending or any position group, really. I think that they're going to keep going back between those two until both of them give them a stinker back-to-back. So that could be 2 games from now. And at the same time, with him in the minors, you get $1.15 million in cap relief because he's not on the roster. And that accrues, again with the Justin Holl conversation, that accrues every single day. And I think one thing that this team that I think shouldn't be overlooked is the type of competition it'll create down there in Grand Rapids with Sebastian Cossa. You know, this is Kossa's crease down there. But his backup, Carter Gylander, who could have a very nice season, but I think putting a guy down there in Ville Husso who could use more live reps in live games. Like, that game against Pittsburgh was his first NHL game in a year and a half. I mean, obviously there was the preseason in which he looked good, but that is nowhere near the same. Like, a lot of those games are borderline AHL games with the guys who are on that roster. I think it could be good for both of them, for him to get more live playing reps at the AHL level, to get his feet back underneath him before getting recalled, and also to create some competition in that for not Ville Husso, but Sebastian Cossa to continue his growth. And I think until you need him on the NHL roster, until Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon prove otherwise, that they're not capable of being an NHL goalie, until you need him, I think that doesn't really hurt anything to keep him down there in Grand Rapids. Better than sitting on the bench at the NHL level or not even being dressed.
Yeah, I don't know. I you might be right. That might be what they're doing. If that is what they do, I will honestly disagree with it wholeheartedly. We talk about development plans so much, and we talk about giving, like, the reason Marco Kasper isn't getting called up is because he's not getting legitimate playing. He wouldn't be getting legitimate minutes at the NHL level. And like, we've had that conversation all the time. We had it all the time with Edvinsson last year as well, right? If you send Husso down and he just becomes the starter,
No.
that's ridiculous to me. Like, Husso, I want Husso to play every single game if possible. Like, Husso's your highest paid goalie, sending him down to Grand Rapids and for him to be actively eating and taking away at starts for Cossa, I think would be a huge detriment to development. I think that's a huge step in the wrong direction. Not that they won't do it, but like, my opinion of it, I would not look at that fondly. You went into the season with 3 goalies on your roster, and then 3 games in, all of them play 1 game, and you're going to go, you know what? We're going to send you down to go take away starts from our top goalie prospect because this didn't work 3 games in. Like, that just seems wild to me. But we'll see.
I mean, I wasn't trying to imply he would be the starter in Grand Rapids, but this is like a pseudo conditioning stint for him, which he clearly could use a little bit more live action. And like, I'm not trying to say he'd get like 3 out of 4 starts. I think Sebastian Cossa is still your starter, but on those nights where you rest Cossa, you put Husso in there so he can get his rest. I know it's kind of crazy to be like, here's a goalie you're paying almost $5 million. He's the backup in Grand Rapids, but like, what else? Like, there, and this is a Steve Yzerman created issue. We've talked about it. Like, you have a really weak goalie room overall. Like, let's call it for what it is. Cam Talbot, you're banking on a 37-year-old who had a nice season last year. I don't want to take that away from him, but you're banking on a 37-year-old behind a good defense to come and replicate that here. That's a recipe for a bad time. He was great in his first start. It was encouraging, and I'm excited to see more of him as he looks to be the projected starter in New York, or I guess back here now in Detroit for the second game against New York. But we know Alex Lyon is prone to streakiness. Ville Husso hasn't, strung together a complete season since he got here, and his second season was so banged up. And it's just, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place where he either is at the NHL level, not playing live games, having a hard time getting back in the groove of it because of that, or you have him in the AHL playing a few live games, but like you said, eating occasional games from your top goalie prospect. Like, this is a self-inflicted wound. It's just, I don't know what else you do with Ville Husso. The pros to keeping him in the Grand Rapids system for the time being is cap accrual, on top of the fact that it takes away days until you have to waive him again, and it creates a roster spot for somebody else if you need it. But the cons are very much what you said. It takes away starts, or it could potentially take away starts from Sebastian Cossa, who's your top goalie prospect. I don't know what to do with Ville Husso. I'm just trying to logically assess what the most realistic option is.
For sure. And like, I have no clue either. My mindset is just like, it is a lose-lose to send him to Grand Rapids in my eyes. You are either making him the starter to get him reps so that he can get back to some sort of NHL caliber form, right? In which case you're taking however many starts that takes away from Husso. Now, if that's, or from Cossa rather, if that's like 4 starts, then sure. Like, I guess that's fine, whatever. You're talking about like a week and a half worth of games, like, sure. But if he's down there for a substantial amount of time, that's not something I would be for. Then on the flip side, if you send him to Grand Rapids and don't play him very often, then you're just letting him sit down there for nothing, and there's just no point to having him like around, period. Like, that would just be, that would be beyond pointless. Like, okay, you're going to get the same amount of, play once a week. You're going to get the same amount of playing time you'd be getting at the NHL, but you're getting it down against AHL talent. Like, that doesn't serve any purpose to me either. Like, I don't really think there's, unless the plan is send him down to Grand Rapids, have him start for like 2 weeks straight so that he can get back to form, and then call him back up and see if it's fixed him. Like, I don't really understand the purpose of sending him down there for a long period of time. But like, again, like they went into the season with a 3 goalie plan. I don't know if one start is enough for them to just be like, well, we're jumping ship from this.
No, and I think I do think we will see Ville Husso again. I'm not saying he's going to be down there for the rest of the season.
Right.
I'm suggesting just for a short stint so he can play some games, because like at some point an injury will occur, or a goalie will crap the bed. I think he will come up at some point because he is an NHL goalie. But another thing to consider too with the AHL conditioning stint plan, like, you got to remember too, like, AHL schedule is structured differently than the NHL schedule structure, because of the way that traveling in the AHL is. They're not taking private jets like NHL teams are. A lot of these games, they're bunched up in the weekend. So, for example, this weekend coming up, the final weekend of October, they have a game on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They play in Springfield on Friday, in Lehigh Valley against the Phantoms on Saturday, and then again on Sunday. So that's back-to-back-to-back games for the Grand Rapids Griffins. Sebastian Cossa is not going to start all 3 of those. Like, you're going to need your other goalie. So, like, you could get Ville Husso very easily a start in there and not have it be robbing your starter. So I think there is, because of the way it's structured, like, it's going to work out for both to some degree without it being like obscene amount of starts being pulled away from Sebastian Cossa. But like, it's still just an unfortunate situation that is a self-inflicted wound by this team when it comes to how they're handling these goalies. Like, they should have made a decision in the offseason on what to do with these guys. But like, they wanted to have the faith in Ville Husso that he'd bounce back. Alex Lyon's contract was just too good to give up. Like, for what he's making and what you're getting out of him, it's too good a value. But like, you look at that tandem and you're like, okay, I'm still not sold on it. So you brought in a 3rd goalie to be that guy. Like they just couldn't make, and I guess that's where my frustration lies. It's something that we've talked about. Like they just don't want to make a decision on it. And I don't have a lot of criticisms for how Steve Yzerman has run this team. It's just really frustrating watching them run three goalies in particular that none of them have been like, I guess I shouldn't talk bad about Cam Talbot yet. He hasn't been here long enough for me to make a definitive statement.
He hasn't allowed a goal yet.
Exactly. I'm still a little scorned from last season with James Reimer, but it seems like it's just a weird way to run the situation, which is something I feel like we've said a lot. Like we talked about it yesterday with the A situation. It's just unorthodox.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the argument that I think holds the most weight and the reason why I think you might be right is just like, if they can keep Husso down there and save some money, and he's not going to play much in the NHL anyway, then that's probably your answer. Like that's probably the way that they would lean. So, and
especially if Justin Holl keeps playing good hockey,
obviously that's a huge factor in it as well.
Because the Red Wings going into the season only had like a few $100,000 in cap space, but when they send one of these guys down, they get an extra over $1 million off. So it's like if one's playing well, just keep the other one down there, and I don't know. It's a little trivial in the end, I suppose. I guess that's a little, but we'll go to segment 3. We'll talk about the New York Rangers again. Off day episodes, baby. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more using those Game Time picks. And they have a toggle at the top of the page called All-In Pricing that allows you to see the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Make sure you turn on that All-In Pricing toggle to make sure you get those prices up front. And you can get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy with Seat Views. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry with Game Time ticket coverage. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. And PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code LOCKDOWNNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Been a myriad of minor errors in this episode. I'm just not on my top form today. Between me punching my mic and calling segment 3, segment 2. Off to a raucous start, heading towards the finish line here. Scotty, Red Wings are playing the New York Rangers again tonight, this time at LCA. And normally when you play the same team back-to-back, there's not a ton to talk about in terms of changes to the lineup. Or starting goaltending, but today there is some stuff to cover. Mainly, the 2 goalies in net have completely changed. You're going to get Cam Talbot for Detroit, and all indications point to Jonathan Quick in net.
Throw a party, everybody. Woo! No Igor. Woo! It's a miracle in November. October? What month is it? Goodness, October. It's a Halloween miracle. Yeah, no, like that. I made a joke before. I was like, man, I think I might even prefer prime Jonathan Quick over what we faced on Monday. So yeah, man, it's obviously that's big news just because of how incredible he is and how incredible he was just on Monday night. So we will and that's not a slight against Jonathan Quick either. Obviously a fantastic career, one of the premier goalies of my generation growing up, and last season had a pretty good year. Despite the fact that he's getting up there in age, people thought he was falling off a little bit. He went to New York and they were like, hey, we don't need you to play that often. We have a really good guy in that. And he's been, with his appearances more and more spaced out, he has been really, really good. So this is not like a cakewalk. It's just not Shesty. So we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a really solid goaltender, I think, too. Not just the starts being spaced out, Scotty, but also playing behind the best team in the regular season, and the New York Rangers helps a lot, too. His final season with the Kings, in which he got traded to Vegas at the trade deadline, it looked like his time in the NHL was over with. Like, it was a bad season for him. He finished the year with an .882 save percentage, but he goes to New York, and last year in 27 starts, which isn't like starter mentality, but it's a good sample size. He had a .911 save percentage and a .262 goals against average. Like, he was a good goaltender. And like, let's be honest, he's a Hall of Fame goalie, right? Like, he's never won the Vezina because he played in an era of very good goalies with a lot of very good goalies, but he's a 2-time Cup winner. He's a Conn Smythe winner. He's won 2 Jennings. He's he's been on the first team all-star team for the NHL. That's different than going to the NHL game. He's been very good. He's 7 wins away from 400 wins, which is another clear indicator of if you're a Hall of Fame goalie. So it's like, we're not trying to disrespect Jonathan Quick when we celebrate. It's just Igor Shesterkin is currently a top 3 goaltender in the NHL.
He could be top 1, yeah.
Right. Connor Hellebuck is right there with him.
Right.
Obviously, there's other great goalies like Saros and Sorokin in that mix as well. But, I mean, Vasilevsky, can't forget Vasilevsky, but, like, holy cow, is it just like, oh, maybe we can score more than 1 goal this time? Right. And for our purposes, like Cam Talbot, it's hard to really incredible 42 save performance, his first game of the year against the Nashville Predators. Not expecting him to put up a 42 shutout again, but hopefully just a more consistent performance than what we saw to Alex Lyon. Again, not that he was horrible. He was serviceable. But, there's 1, maybe 2 goals that Lyon let in that Cam Talbot may have saved. So, we'll see. I think that's the most, not jarring, but the most notable change to the lineup for these games going forward. But during practice on Wednesday, we also saw some line shuffling for the Detroit Red Wings. Vladimir Tarasenko did not skate as he was out sick. So we had a little bit of a debate before the practice, or before the episode here, about those practice lines. The lines were DeBrincat, Larkin, Kane, Comfort, Raymond, and Rasmussen, which is where Tarasenko was. Then it was Mott, Kopp, and Fischer, so Mott sliding up the Rasmussen spot. And then it said Fischer again, placeholding question mark on Onsar Khan's tweet, Veleno and Bergeron as your forward line. So Fischer's on 2 lines, lines 3 and 4, with Rasmussen and Mott bumped up. And the argument we were having is everyone bumped up to placeholder for Tarasenko, or are they moving Tarasenko to that 4th line with Veleno and Bergeron? Because my mindset was like, I feel, and we'll find out, there's no controversy here until the lines come out. We'll see what the lines are once puck drops. There's no controversy here until we see those actual lines, but it is really interesting. Like, did they really bounce everyone up a line in practice to fill in for 1 spot, or are they actually moving Tarasenko down to the 4th line with Veleno and Bergeron, which would have quite the offensive pop for a 4th line, because I just feel like Kopp, Fischer, and Mott is a shutdown line. I don't know why you would change that.
Well, because Rasmussen usually plays with them. That's why you would change it. Like, I don't know. Like, I just assume that Rasmussen moved up to replace Vlad, and then Mott moved up to replace Rasmussen, and then Fischer double dipped. And like, that's, once he's back in there, then everybody's going to move down. We also, I mean, again, we don't know, but we also could be playing with 11-7, like we said. So if that's the
Right.
case, then you're going to have some weird mixing and matching anyways, because you're going to have a weird looking fourth line. So
Yeah, my argument against you though was just like, why, if Rasmussen is placeholding, like why would you have Fischer placeholding twice if the person you're placeholding for is Tarasenko? Why not just have Rasmussen placeholder on the second line and then play his normal role on the third line instead of shifting everyone else around?
Because that would never happen. Tyler Mott is never going to play on the second line, so why would you ever run a practice with that? Christian Fischer is never going to play on the second line. Right.
I'm saying why did they not just keep Rasmussen on his line and then have him placeholder for Tarasenko on the second?
Oh,
like why did they move everyone else around?
Probably because it's a lot easier to double dip for a fourth liner than have fun. You're going to play 2 and 3 today. I mean, I guess it's a practice. Who knows? But
I don't know. If Tarasenko's on the fourth line, there's gonna be conversations to be had. That's root for radio right there. Not that I'm rooting for it to happen, but it would be content.
I would rather he's a second line 25 goal scorer. But
right. That would be a decision. But again, there's no controversy or conversation here yet until we see what the lines actually look like come puck drop. Because with him out sick, this could all just be because he was out sick. Defense, Gustafson's back in. He was paired up with Mata, he was paired up with against Pittsburgh rather. Holl and Edvinsson are back together, and Johansson was the extra skater playing with the injured Jeff Petry, who is confirmed to be out again against the New York Rangers. That's pretty much what we were predicting yesterday. We talked about who would be the odd man out, and we said probably the rookie Johansson because he has the least amount of NHL experience, and he was very sheltered in the 2 games that he did play.
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, I do think at a certain point, you got to give him more exposure. You got to see what you have in him. But early in the season here, they're just going to go with, established NHL vets to try and get themselves into a rhythm first and foremost. Not to say, like, Johansson I was very impressed with his first 2 games. But again, he was super sheltered in his time on the ice.
Yeah, for sure.
So, anything else about this game you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so.
All right. Last thing I got on the show sheet is Riley Sheahan retired. Red Wings draft pick 2010, 20th overall. He played, 800? How many games did he play? 637 in the NHL, and he played 292 of those games with the Detroit Red Wings, scoring 38 goals, 60 assists for 98 points in that span. He was a dog. I always loved Riley Sheahan. I knew it was a little disappointing that a 20th overall became kind of just like a bottom 6 forward, but, he established a really nice career for himself in the NHL, and just saying congratulations to Riley Sheahan. Fond memories of number 15.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolute dog. He was one of my friend group's favorite players growing up. We all big fans. So, yeah, happy retirement. He's getting into coaching, I read. There was something.
Coaching and development.
Yeah, so very, very, very cool. Good for him, man.
Yep. Congratulations, Riley Sheahan, on a nice NHL career. Final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, so stay tuned as we recap the New York Rangers. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.